Good morning, everybody. This is Ashik Yusuf. I'm with AABEA. I would like to welcome everybody to this career development event today. It's not easy to participate on a Saturday morning, but we are very glad that all of you are here. With that, I will ask our president, Akhter, to give the welcoming speech.
Thank you, Ashik Yusuf. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of my team, I welcome you all to AABEA Networking, Professional Development and Career Fair. I am pleased to see that so many participants are present in this virtual forum, a platform that provides a unique opportunity for engagement, networking, and potential partnerships between employers and the job seekers, mentors, and mentees. For students who are about to complete their studies, it is important to realize that securing employment is a two-way process. Students, on the one hand, need to make themselves attractive to the employers, while the employers, on the other hand, put a lot of effort ensuring they find the best students or graduates. As a student, you are about to make one of the most important decisions of your life, which is likely going to be the first step towards a successful career. Employers are joining the race for your academic brain, which makes it difficult to decide where the best start of your career should be. I believe that your first employer often determines the path of your career and can leave a lasting impact on your life. Therefore, do not take these decisions lightly. At this point, allow me to share with you all some valuable lessons I have learned from my own experience. Number one, it is important to have a vision, a goal, aspiration in life. Number two, you need mentors. Number three, never stop learning. Number four, there are no shortcuts to success. And most importantly, money is important, yes, but not the most important thing. Keep that in mind. When you are doing good job, when you are successful in your career, money will follow you. You don't have to follow the money. So it is my sincere hope that the interaction at the virtual event will yield positive results for you all. I wish you all great success in your future career. Thank you very much. And I'm getting back to Ashik Yusuf.
Thank you, Afroza, for those valuable words. Now I'm going to introduce Dr. Quamrul Mazumder as our first speaker. Dr. Mazumder is a professor at University of Michigan, Flint. His research areas are particulated multi-phase flow using experimental and computational methods, quality in higher education, metacognition, engagement, and student motivation. He is an expert in quality in global higher education. He's a Fulbright scholar and program evaluator for Accreditation Board of Engineering and Technology. And he's also a program director, associate chair of mechanical engineering, University of Michigan, Flint, NASA summer faculty fellow. With that, Dr. Mazumder, please start. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. So I think a few things I like to share with the group. I do not have a presentation. So my background is I worked in industry for 18 years and I'm working in universities for about 20 years. So I have like 50-50. I was in both sides of the aisle, basically. I was a industry. I was an engineering manager at Honeywell Aerospace. I worked as an engineer and got my career. Then at some point of my career, I thought I'd come to academia to see how it looks like. So it is very important to understand the difference and similarities and differences between industry, working environment, and academia, how we prepare a student to succeed. So a lot of you are going to school and have gone to school. And I know you have to struggle when you go to academia to school to industry. So I'm going to talk few things for you to help understand the process. And we always tell that, from academia, go to industry, you have to go to, think about a stair with 3 steps missing. So you are jumping from step 1 to step 4, and middle transition is missing. So I'm going to help you how to get those transition. And a lot of you go to a industry, find out that things you learned in the academia does not directly apply. So sometimes you get frustrated. Why did I learn Laplace transform? Why did I learn differential equation? What's the value proposition in it? Why did we do that? So I'm going to help you understand that process, and how do you prepare yourself to go to a job while you are in school. So a lot of us, including me, when we went to school, we are very busy with our school. We try to get a grade, we try to get a high GPA, then we apply for a job. We never thought about preparing ourselves for rest of our life. So we sometimes tell that you go to school for 4 years, you prepare for 40-year careers. It's a tenfold return on investment. So what you study in 4 years, you use it for 40 years in general, right? Some plus or minus. So during the school, if some of you are already in school, have to think about your 40-year life, not your 4-year school, in between those things. So how do we do that? It is challenging. So in the most of us, we are from Southeast Asia, developing country, and Bangladesh, and the biggest challenge I have faced is the communication skill and team working skill. When we went to school, we never been encouraged to participate in the classroom discussion. So I'm giving lecture to a class in China, even I did it last night. So there are 89 students in the class, and nobody asked question. And I asked the professor over there is a TA, my TA is another professor in Chinese classroom. So she explained things. I give a lecture in English, she explained things in Chinese. So I asked her, why students do not ask me question? I do want to know that communication, I'm giving monotonous one-way speech, and we call it lecture, and this is very bad. We need to hear from the other part. So that's the part of communication skill. We never learned it. And in China, it is disrespectful to ask a professor a question. I said, wow, that was in Bangladesh like 50 years ago. So it is still valid in China. And China, they have a first, second, third boy in the class. So whoever get the grade in the first, I said, well, I think those things are obsolete. So the point I'm trying to make is communication skill is very, very important. When you're going to school, make sure you participate in some event, you develop your communication skill. Communication is not how to talk. Communication is more like how to listen. So listening is major part of communication skill, which we are bad at it. So for example, if you go to any event, Bangladeshi party or anything, one thing you will observe that everybody talks, and very few people stay quiet and listen. Sometimes I try to listen and people think I am not participating. I says, no, I am trying to absorb different discussion happening. So you go to a meeting in a company environment, try to understand everybody's perspective. Listening is very, very important. And before you speak, develop a passion for listening and make note of it. And then you speak. Then you speak from your perspective. So communication skill is number one. Number two is lifelong learning. I think that's what Khwaja mentioned a little bit ago, that when you go to a company in the university, okay, so when I was going to school in Bangladesh, one of the teachers said that you are a knife, I'm sharpening you, and you don't know what kind of tree you'll be cutting. You'll be cutting a She was telling you may be cutting a kochugas or you may be cutting a very hard tree, but I am giving you sharpened knife. So that's the skill we gave in that college, right? School, we gave you the skill about how to solve a problem. Math is not about math. So when you do calculus, what you do is you understand how to systematically solve a problem in a step-by-step process. So in the industry, when you go there, even you are not doing multivariate calculus and Laplace transform, what you're doing is you look at a problem, you find a sequential process. So that process is learned in math. So you have to have a step 1, step 2, step 10, all of them are correlated like an assembly line. So if you have an assembly line, you have to make some part and go to the next step and the final assembly. That's your final answer. So in math problem, the final answer is your final product in your organization. So you have to think about that way. So even there is no direct correlation to industry to academia, when you go to college, when you're in school, try to communicate, try to listen. And when I came to United States, like long time ago, before some of you are born, anyway, I'm not going to disclose my age, but anyway, so I always gather around the people of my background, which is a bad thing to do. There are some benefit. Well, we cook together, we go to grocery together, but try to go outside the box. Try to get involved with some domestic student, like I'm telling American student. Why? Because you understand, know the culture, you know the language, you'll develop a language skill. And when you go to a company, you're not going to work with all Bangladeshi people. You're going to work with most of the American people. So if you don't develop that skill of how to talk to them, how to listen and understand their perspective, their thought process, it will be very difficult for you to understand in the company environment. So go to outside your comfort zone or domain and be uncomfortable and talk to people you don't know, try to meet people you don't know. That's what we are bad at. We always try to cluster around our comfort zone. We always try to, students basically, and try to be, I see in my school, all Indian students work together. They go to restaurant together. She says, well, why can't you talk to some people who are not Indian, American people? We have like only 7% of the students are international students. So you have 93% of the students are not Indian. So why don't you go and talk to them? And yeah, they will not understand you. They may not like you. So this is a reality. When you go to the company, when you live in the United States, yes, some people will not like you. Some people will not understand you. You have to prepare yourself to deal with that environment and how to become successful in that environment. Nobody is going to give you an environment. You have to create yourself, create an environment for you. So, and for the job, you need to be passionate. So first job, when I look at it, I took any job, I need money. So I was in school, I was starving, I need money. But even if you take the first job for money, try to understand whether you like it or not. There will never be any job you like 100%. As long as you don't hate it, you like most of it, you know how to live with it, that would be enough. So don't look for something that, company always tell me, like I under the company, do you enjoy doing your job? I said, well, yeah, I like it, but I don't know whether I enjoy or not, because if you enjoy something, nobody's going to pay for it. So there'll be some difficulty, something you will not like, but as long as you, I think as you enjoy more than 50%, that's probably good enough, and try to like as much as you can. It is our life. Like in our life, do I like everything I do? No, I don't. I like most of the things, and the things I don't like, I try to adapt to it. So a lot of us struggle from academia to industry, saying that, this school did not teach me anything when I came to company. No, the school did prepare you, but you have to keep on learning, lifelong learning. And also you have to develop some skill. life is all about. So I think I'm just giving example. When I'm teaching in China, one class, what happened is I start learning Chinese. So I have a Chinese translation, and I'm too old to learn a language. Nobody's too old to learn anything. But I thought that if I use Chinese language in some of my lectures, some of the discussion, it will be students will be very receptive to it. So I'm doing it myself. So anytime you go to organization, get a job, try to understand the organizational dynamics and culture. Every organization is different. Every organization is different. Every department is different. People have their own view, own perspective, and own thought process, and sometimes some bias into decision-making process. You need to understand those dynamics. And do not try to fight with it, try to adapt to it as much as possible. Of course, you may have some disagreement, but don't be, try to be positive and constructive, and make positive contribution and constructive contribution. People who are successful in life are the one who knows how to adapt to difficult situation. So life is not easy, life is challenging, but it's also enjoyable. Enjoyable means it's up to you how you take the life and how you like it. So it's like a glass half empty or half full. That's a very common analogy people uses. So always think that there are positive things on everything. So every decision we make has some positive perspective on it. And then there will be something you may not like it. It may not be, everything you like. So I know the department chair, there are faculty member make decision. Sometimes I voluntarily lose. So I could make a lot of decision, right? This is the way it should be. This is the way it should be. And some faculty member or some of my colleagues say, well, this is the way it should be. So I willingly lose the situation. I willingly say, okay, well, I'll agree with what you have. Why do I do that? The reason I do it is you also have to let somebody's opinion get some priority and preference. So don't try to win all the time. Try to also compromise and negotiate, and try to give up something for in exchange of other things. So even if I let that decision give priority and implement, in long run, it was very helpful. It was very helpful for keeping a good organizational environment. So this is very important in life. And last not the least, I'm very strong proponent of ethics and morality. Always try to do the best thing, always try to do the right thing. And it is not easy sometimes in corporate environment. You have to look for companies' interest, and we have engineers creed that you have to look for human safety and well-being of society and community. But we have to make sure that whatever you think is the right thing and most ethical and moral thing, and do that. Even if you lose, not today, you'll win in long term. I've seen those examples over and over in my own life and other life, that doing the right thing for the right cause and helping others will make you successful in long run. I'll be happy to entertain any question you may have. I don't want to take too much time. I had I talked for 15 minutes, and if anybody has any question, I'll be happy to answer.
No, I thank you, Dr. Mazumder. We'll have these presentations done, and then we do have, the networking session after it, and we can have, more open discussion at that time. Now, let's see. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Mazumder? If not, we can move on to the next presenter.
Yusuf Bhai, I think Everybody is in mute. So if you have any question, please raise your hand so that we know. Or you can put in the chat as well.
So I have a trick. I'm going to share with you how to get questions out of students, right?
Okay.
In my class, I tell you that you have an option. Either you ask me a question or I'll ask you a question, right? So which one is easier? You ask me a question, do you like it? Or I will ask you a question. I'll pick anybody. So then you see that a lot of students start asking questions. If you ask a question, you're immune. You have immunity. I'll never ask a question in this class. So if you do that, there'll be, so this is just a joke. So, but anyway, I think you have a lot of questions in your mind, even if you don't have want to ask it in the open forum. I have my email address. I'll be happy to mentor anyone who want to, get some idea from me how to maneuver the system, how to go from academia to industry, and how to be successful. And we have a lot of other speakers who will also share similar thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mazumder. And especially you covered a lot on soft skills. I know Mr. Monjur Chowdhury will be covering that topic somewhat, so more to come. And here now we will introduce Dr. Khwaja Rahman. Khwaja Rahman received his bachelor's degree from Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology and his PhD from Texas A&M, both in electrical engineering. At present, he is working as a technical director at Rivian Automotive. His research interests are electric machine design and propulsion system design optimization. He is a fellow of IEEE. Khwaja bhai, please.
Okay, thank you, Ashik. I have few slides that I'd like to share today. And most of the slides actually I have shared before, actually in this event a few years ago. So if it is a repeat for you, I apologize. But when I was going through the slides, I think those are still relevant. So I thought that maybe I will present those again. And obviously we'll have a question and answer session, looks like at the end of all the presentation. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So let me share my slides first. So, okay, so the title of my presentation is Job Prospects in Transforming Automotive Industry. Now the question is, what is the automotive industry? So in the past, automotive industry basically meant the big OEM, like in USA, we have GM, then we have Ford, and then we have Chrysler, which is Stellantis now. And then obviously in Europe, we have big players like Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen, and we have Japanese company, Korean company, and the supply base. So that was the traditional automotive industry in the past. Now, as you know, that automotive industry is going through a big transformation. Like we have the conventional vehicle, now it is transforming to electrified vehicle. And it is coming, and there is no doubt about it anymore. Actually, people doubted that in the past. But at this moment, there is no doubt that it is coming. And as a result, what we are seeing right now, there are a lot of EV industry or EV companies are mushrooming around the globe. Just to give you an example, just in China, there are more than 200 EV companies. Not all of them are legitimate, but nevertheless, there are 200 EV companies in China alone. And there are quite a few in USA. So the job nature is changing in the automotive industry. Just to give you an example, this is a propulsion system of an electric vehicle. So what are the components in the propulsion system now? One of the big one, obviously, that means is the battery pack. And typically nowadays, we have a skateboard, and where the batteries are actually mounted or installed, just like this one. And then we have a propulsion system that drives the vehicle. And the big component or the major component of the propulsion systems are, we have a gearbox. And it is not a multi-speed transmission typically. In a conventional vehicle, we have multi-speed transmission, like 9-speed. We used to have 6-speed, then you have 9-speed, even more than 9 speeds in some of the vehicles. But typically in an electric vehicle, it is a single speed or a single speed transmission. We have a little bit large ratio, like 10:1, 11:1, or 12:1 to multiply the torque. But it is a single speed transmission. And it has its own challenges in designing this transmission or this gearbox. Then we have electric motor, typically a permanent magnet machine, which is connected directly to the gearbox. Then we have a power inverter. The inverter basically drives the motor. So it takes the input from the battery pack or battery voltage and convert that voltage to an AC voltage and tries to run the electric machine. So that's basically what the power inverter does. And then there are other components in the electric vehicle. Those are like, you have an onboard charger, we call OBC. We can basically plug into the utility, 110 volt utility, and then you can charge the battery. Then we have a DC-DC converter because the voltage is pretty high voltage, 400 volt, and industry is now going to 800 volt, 900 volt level. So we need a low voltage to supply the auxiliary. So we have a DC-DC converter to bring that voltage down to 12 volt and supply all the auxiliaries actually. Then in off vehicle, we have other components like L1 charger or L2 charger, because that OBC 110 volt cannot charge EV battery nowadays actually, because EV batteries are like 200 miles, 300 mile range. You need a much more powerful charger. That's why you need an L2 charger, which is actually a two-phase charger. You cannot do with a single phase. You have to connect that charger to a two-phase line, and you have to hook it up in the garage. If you don't have it in the garage nowadays, you have to hook it up that way so that you can charge an L2 charger. And then off vehicle, we have a DC fast charger that you can actually hook up in a network, obviously not in your house, but outside your house actually. So those are much more powerful charger, like 350 kilowatt is a common number, which is used actually for fast charging. Just to give an example, an EV vehicle can be charged from zero range to 150 miles. If you need 150 or 200 miles, you can do that in 15 minutes nowadays actually. So you can do 70 to 80 miles in 4 and 5 minutes actually. So those are some of the advancements that are happening. So as a result, you can understand that the jobs nature is changing in the EV industry. So I'll give you some examples of some of the jobs which are high in demand. So don't get disheartened if you don't see that your expertise is not listed in my presentation, because I'm giving this from my own perspective. But there are many other jobs which are actually available in the auto industry and relevant industries, which I am not listing here because I do not know, but those jobs are definitely available for new students. So one of the job that's obviously needed in EV industry is on the electric machine, because that's basically what is driving the vehicle. We used to have engine before, an electric machine is driving the engine. Then what are the jobs that we find in the EV industry or automotive industry related to electric machines? One big area is electromagnetic design, which is designing the machine. And typically needs an advanced degree for that one, MS and typically PhD. And some of you may have that expertise. So and finding a job for you actually would be pretty easy. There is a big demand actually for that. And not that many school actually offers this doesn't have this curriculum. Only few schools have this curriculum at the present. For example, in Michigan, Michigan State University has a pretty decent curriculum in this area. Then few other schools I can mention is like Wisconsin Madison. They are actually leading in this area for past many years. Georgia Tech, Ohio State University, Virginia Tech. There are a few schools, not NC State. They have a pretty strong curriculum in this area. But besides that, obviously you need mechanical engineers also. So motor mechanical design, motor manufacturing. Dr. Mazumder said, you don't come out of school as an expert in this area. You actually learn in the industry to be an expert in this area. So the reason I wanted to mention motor manufacturing is because this is one area every industry is actually struggling to find a job. Just to give an example, in my company, we have job open for last 8 and 10 months. We're not even finding anybody to fill that position. So there is a big demand actually in this area, like motor mechanical design. Do you have any knowledge in designing the machine in the mechanical side? Obviously, fresh coming out of school, you probably don't have that expertise, but if you get a chance and get involved in this area, then you can learn pretty quickly. It doesn't take that long to learn it actually, because the basics are actually taught in the school. So you can learn this pretty easily and pretty quickly. And then you can become an expert in few years actually, and then you'll be really in high demand. So if you get an opportunity coming to industry to work in this area, I would say that go directly and don't even think about twice going to this area. If you like it, obviously you have to like it. Then you can actually bring your career to a next level, and you will be in high demand in many years to come. So these are a few ideas I wanted to mention. Then obviously, as I mentioned, that we have a power inverter that's you need to drive the motor. So the one area is called power electronics, and we have a lot of engineering job in that area. But the main core is actually designing the electrical circuit. And again, for that one, you need an advanced degree, MS or a PhD, and you need some experience to do electrical power electronics design for electric vehicle. The curriculum that teach you electric machines, same curriculum actually will teach you power electronics and some battery side as well actually. So if you go into that curriculum, you can learn electric machine, you can learn power electronics, you can learn machine control. Then you can specialize in any of these three areas. You can specialize in machine, you can specialize in power electronics, or you can specialize in the battery side. So if you want to further your career, you want to study more, this is obviously one area you can definitely pick, and you'll have a pretty large demand down the road. EMI, EMC is quite important on the mechanical and electrical side. These are some fresh graduate from the school can actually fill one of this position. The packaging is very important because we have very limited space in the vehicle. So how we package all the components together is quite important. So you can learn those actually when you come to the industry. If you have a very strong mathematical background and you have a strong engineering background, it's not that difficult to learn that actually. You can learn it quite quickly and quite easily. Thermal design, obviously thermal is very important because you have to cool the converter to maximize the performance of the propulsion system. So thermal design is quite important. Circuit layout, printed circuit board assembly. So you need a controller board. Basically, that goes to microprocessor and other components that goes in the circuit board. So this design is actually also in a high demand in the industry. Then control calibration software design. So this is another area we struggle to find people. The embedded system, you probably hear about a lot actually. But this is actually one area we really struggle to find people, like the people that write software. And this software is actually very low-level software, that the software that communicates with the hardware. So that's the people that's you can learn those in the school and then get experience in the industry. And this area is actually in pretty high demand. So again, we actually struggle to find people who that we can fill in many different roles in the industry. So this is one area you can, if you want to further your career, you can think about learning actually in this area. Motor control, I already talked about that. We have permanent magnet machine, induction machine. So motor control is another area which you learn actually within the same curriculum. As I said before, we call the power curriculum. You learn about electric machine design. You learn about power electronics, which basically design the DC-DC converter, the charger, the power inverter. Those are all part of the power electronics. And then motor control is also taught in the same curriculum. And then if you are doing a master's or a PhD, obviously you then specialize in one area. You don't specialize on three areas. You specialize in one of the areas actually. Either you become a machine designer or you can become a power electronics designer, or you can become a motor control engineer. But the advantage of is actually I have people who has been working in machine design area in my group for maybe 3, 4, 5 years, and then he decides that I have done machine design for a while. Actually, I actually like to move to motor controls, and he can actually move to motor control, or she can move to motor control. So that's actually possible. So this is one advantage of working or learning or getting a degree in this area that will help you finding jobs in the industry. Battery management system is actually another area is very, very important. The reason this is important, you can understand that the battery pack is the most expensive component of the electric vehicle, and it has to last the life of the vehicle, like 15, 20 years. It has to last that long. But you know that a battery, if you are running a battery in a cell phone, or you are using a battery in your remote control, you know that battery doesn't last that long. About 2 to 3 years, the battery is done, and then you need to replace the battery. Obviously, you cannot do that in an automotive battery because this is so expensive. And if you have to replace your battery every 5 years, then nobody is going to buy an EV. So battery management is actually very, very important. So every cell in the battery, there are hundreds of cells in the battery. Every cell in the battery is actually monitored. The temperature is monitored, the voltage is monitored, and then and the battery is actually managed that way, very controlled way, so that you can expedite the life of the battery because the battery has to survive 15 years, the life of the vehicle. Nobody would like to replace a battery which is like 10 years, $10,000, $15,000. So this is actually very important. So this is another area actually in very high demand in the industry, in the automotive industry. And battery pack testing, validation, obviously that's quite important. On the modeling side, there is a big demand actually, people that can model a battery. You start from the cell, then you can actually model the cell, you can estimate the state of charge, estimate the pack voltage, estimate pack cell and pack and cell temperature, then you move to the pack level actually. So these are some of the area. There is a pretty high demand in the industry right now. I talked about the gearbox, and this gearbox is pretty different from the conventional vehicle, because conventional vehicle gearbox is multi-speed, 10 speeds, 6 speeds, 9 speed, even more than 9 speeds. But EV industry gearboxes are actually typically single speed. We have seen some 2-speed transmission like Porsche Taycan. They came up with a 2-speed transmission, but most of the EV vehicle are single speed. Basically, that means there is no shift, there is no transmission shift actually. So as a result, when you accelerate an electric vehicle, you'll see that it's very, very smooth. You don't feel any hiccup because there is no shifting in an EV vehicle. So the designing and gearbox for EV actually you may think is easy because just single speed, but it's actually not that easy because the ratio is actually pretty high. You need a 10:1 or 12:1 ratio for an EV gearbox. And at the same time, noise is actually very, very critical in VH. It has to be very, very quiet. The reason it has to be very quiet, you can understand that in a conventional vehicle, you have a lot of background noise. You have the engine noise that can mask some of those transmission noises. Still, you can hear those, but there are a lot of masking noises actually in a conventional vehicle. In an electrical vehicle, is actually very quiet, especially if you're cruising in a freeway. Your vehicle is very, very quiet. So you can actually hear a lot of the noises very easily. As a result, the NVH is actually very, very critical for a gearbox, for a machine. So there are a lot of people that are actually working on the NVH side. And typically this becomes a nightmare for an EV vehicle. We're very close to production launch. And you are seeing that you still have noise problem and you have to fix those. And an NVH engineer is actually pretty high demand, and for that reason actually. Typically, if you're coming out of school and you know Romax, that's a software actually is typically used for assessing NVH of a gearbox. I have seen that there is a pretty big demand for people who are experienced in the Romax. They know how to run Romax and do NVH analysis of a gearbox. Is actually pretty in high demand. So obviously gear design engineer, we need them because it's a pretty high ratio gear, and the efficiency of the gear is very, very critical. in the propulsion system, about 25 to 30% of the loss comes from the gearbox, the mechanical loss. Then about 30% loss is coming from the electric machine, or 30 to 35% coming from the electric machine. So the gearbox mechanical loss is actually very important, because that minimizing that loss will actually improve the range of the vehicle. So the loss model, NVH assessment, these are very critical. Testing side, obviously, people that are experienced with noise NVH testing is also in very high demand actually in the industry. And I'm bringing those again and again. There's in very high demand is because we actually struggle to find people in those areas. We have open position, and those are open for 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, even 10 months, and we cannot fill those positions because there's so much demand in those area. Then CAE, at one point, CAE jobs actually outsourced to outside country, other countries. Now I'm seeing actually these jobs are coming back to USA. So we actually are looking a lot of people in the CAE area. But as you can understand, the component has changed now. The CAE people used to do engine analysis, transmission, multi-speed transmission analysis in the past. Those people now have to do machine analysis, machine structural analysis, machine noise analysis, machine thermal analysis. And then on the power electronics side, you have to study the power electronics thermal analysis, some structural stress analysis, some fatigue analysis, CFD analysis, so thermal analysis. So these are the jobs actually still in pretty high demand. So when we have a position open for a CAE engineer, we actually still struggle to find people who have experience in analyzing these components. We find a lot of people who is capable of analyzing engine or multi-speed transmission, but we still struggle who can analyze actually this component. But the thing is actually, if you have done engine analysis, if you have done transmission analysis, it is not that difficult for you to pick up this area, because these analyses are pretty similar. You just need to have some experience with the component, but you can easily actually transition from your previous job. Like I know that some of the people already in the audience, they have done engine analysis their whole life. Now they have transitioned into electrification side, and that transition is not that difficult. You can do that quite easily actually. So if you find opportunities, try to do analysis in this area. And I would say that there are still a lot of jobs even in the CAE area that we struggle to fill. Then I like to mention few other areas that's I don't have good knowledge about, but like data science and data analysis. This is important because in automotive industry we have big data, especially coming out of the field, and managing that data and then do some data analytics with that data is quite important. And we have several groups doing that right now in the industry. Vehicle connectivity, stationary energy storage. This is one area. It's not related to the vehicle, but every EV industry has a group. They can do stationary energy storage. The reason for that is the EV vehicle, at the end of the life of the EV vehicle, the battery actually still has quite a life left. And that battery can be used actually in the stationary energy storage. So this is one area actually. Every automotive industry actually has investing time and effort actually developing this stationary energy storage. ADAS and then autonomous driving, you can understand, obviously that's the future. A lot of people are hired in that area. Systems engineering, this is actually one area we struggle to find people, because systems engineering basically means that you are a good mechanical engineer, you're also a good electrical engineer. So the area that we always say that a good engineer in an automotive industry is a good mechanical engineer who understands electrical engineering and vice versa. So those are basically the system engineers actually, and there is a pretty big demand for those type of people. Vehicle control, thermal management systems. So these are few areas. I'm sure there are other areas which I'm not listing here, which are also in pretty high demand actually. So these are few areas. If you don't have expertise, you can actually grow there. I would say that quite easily with self-learning and with your adaptability. So these are a few characteristics actually quite critical. So what I tried to do here is basically give you an example of a few areas which are in pretty high in demand in the industry, and you can grow into that role quite easily. Dr. Mazumder has said few times that In the school, they teach you how to use a knife actually, and then what you do with the knife is actually up to you when you come to the industry. And you can learn this expertise. Doesn't take that long actually. If you are motivated and if you really want to learn yourself, self-learning, you have that capability, then you can actually grow in one of this role quite easily. If you have that background actually. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of some of the jobs that are in high demand in the industry. And I said before that don't get disheartened that if your area is not listed here, because I don't have knowledge of every jobs that are actually in high demand in the industry, especially in the automotive industry. But this is from my own perspective. These are few jobs we actually look for when we try to fill a position in my area and related area. So I will skip this slide because Dr. Mazumder has talked about this in the length, and you probably see this a lot when you Google it, when you search for what are the characteristics important. This will pop up, and you sometimes you think that, oh, okay, this we always see that actually. So but don't underestimate those actually, because these are actually pretty important. Just for give an example, adaptability. I already talked about that a lot of people they have worked on the engine design, they have worked on the transmission design their whole life, and now they have to transform to the new industry, which is electrification. So adaptability is very, very important for that reason actually, and it's not that difficult. You have the expertise, you have the background, you can easily learn and adapt to a new role actually. So this is quite important. Like growth potential, this is one area actually is quite important personally to me. When I look for someone to hire in my group, I actually look for experience, but that is not my important criteria. I would actually rather hire someone who has growth potential over someone who is very experienced, because someone very experienced doing the same job year after year, but doesn't show any growth potential. To me, another candidate who is not that experienced but has some growth potential, that candidate has the ability to grow and then assume a different role. That candidate is actually more important to me than someone which has a lot of experience. So this is actually quite important. It's not only to me. I'm pretty sure a lot of managers look into that actually. Does that candidate have growth potential? Dr. Mazumder talked about that communication skill. This is actually very, very, very important. And especially people coming from Bangladesh origin, we are not very good in communication skill, including myself. We are not very good in communication skill actually. So this is one area is actually very important. We see that someone with the same caliber, someone has actually moved up quite a bit in the industry. You will see that person has a good communication skill, and another person is very skilled, but is actually not getting moved up into a higher role, maybe especially in a management role and high position management role. You'll see that particular person doesn't have a good communication skill. So this is actually very, very important, the communication skill. And then critical thinking, problem solving, cross-functional collaboration. These are actually very, very important in the industry. When you come to industry, you'll find out actually. So someone that actually moving up in their career versus someone actually is stagnant in the career, you'll see that a lot of them has actually these characteristics in their personal character, and that is the reason they're actually basically moving up. So I would say that even though you see that a lot, and if you Google it, you'll find that it'll pop up. You may not think that maybe, yeah, we always see that actually, and may not think this is that important. But trust me, actually, these are actually very important for your career in the industry actually. So with that, I'll stop. I hope I didn't take a long time, but if you have any questions, obviously, I think we'll be here. I think after all the presentations are done, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So
I'll make a correction there. I mean, your presentation is so relevant and important for us, and it has so much technical information. I think we should have a questionnaire session right now. And I see Afroza had something to ask.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Khwaja, for this awesome presentations. Working in a conventional internal combustion engine for 22 years, and recently moved to the EV space doing all this battery work now. It's very high learning curve for me, but enjoying every moment of it. But I like to question you, like someone like me, who are in the mid of their career and doesn't have the opportunity in the current job to learn all those motor skills or all those different skills to change their career. What you suggest for them? What is the best way to learn? Should they go back to school, take some classes? What your suggestion for them?
I think it depends on the individual. For example, I hired one person in my group recently who is a mechanical engineer and has a PhD degree. But he has no knowledge about machines, has no knowledge about power electronics, has no knowledge about battery. I still hired him actually, because I know that that person is actually capable of learning. And what I did with him is basically gave him some material to study by himself. And then also told him that if you think that it will help you to go for the training, there are classes actually offered by many universities actually in the area, summer classes. These are not like regular curriculum classes. These are actually classes that they offer for the industry people so that they can go and learn actually. So I actually hook him up with a class, which was a several day class, about a 1-week class in Wisconsin, Madison. That basically taught about the basics of machines, basics of power electronics, basics of battery pack. And then after that, then I started using him actually in a system modeling role actually. So which is modeling all the different components he has no knowledge about actually. And within 6 and 8 months, he's actually very good actually, doing really, really good in that role actually. He's learning so quickly, and he's contributing so immensely in my group actually. So I'm really happy that I made that decision, that even though he has no background in the area of my expertise, I still thought that he can grow. He can grow in that role actually, and then I hired him, and he's doing really good actually. So if someone like you working in an engine space for such a long time, and then moving to the electrification space, it will be a challenge, no doubt about that actually, because you don't know about the component that well actually. So I'll say that you can do self-learning, you can do find someone in the industry and make him your mentor, or you can go to the school actually to take a course on that, and then slowly grow from there actually. So I've not said that you need another degree to continue your career actually. You can learn yourself as well actually if you are motivated. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I agree, because in the company I work in, I can see a lot of people are learning, going from the mechanical side to EV space. And as you say, the adaptability is there. And when you start working, you can see it's different. It's a lot of similar thing. We are working in a different way.
It's a physics at the end. Is a physics
section.
Exactly. Physics are very similar. So
physics are very simple, similar. Just the application of it is different.
It's a
Thank
different.
you very much. Yeah. I see some other hand raised, so I let them answer a question there.
Hi. So I've been working in the testing industry, and my background is that I am, I just got my bachelor's in ME, and like Ms. Afroza said, like our background is like basically dynamics and thermal stuff, but my electrical background is the basics of what every ME does, which is controls and systems and just basic circuitry. But when I'm doing electrical testing, sometimes I feel out of my depth, like I have to read the specification a billion times, and then I have to ask our electrical engineer, what's going on. And moving forward in my career, do you think that I can even get a master's in electrical over mechanical engineering, which might be more beneficial? And when I'm looking at master's programs for electrical engineering, it's more advanced nitty-gritty stuff, which is like signals and processing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like a little bit confused on that.
I mean, we talk about vehicle electrification, right? So we may think that we need electrical engineer. Actually, that is not true. Actually, we need a lot of mechanical engineers because there are a lot of mechanical components, right? So the mechanical engineers are also in very high demand, actually. So if you want to stay in the mechanical side, that's totally fine. But don't think that you have a mechanical engineering background, you cannot go to electrical engineering. It is not true. Just to give an example, I had a co-worker who has a bachelor degree in mechanical engineering, who has a master's degree in mechanical engineering. He did his PhD in electrical engineering. So he did PhD in actually in the machine area, electric machine area. He did PhD in electrical engineering. So moving from mechanical engineering to electrical engineering will be a challenge. I will not say that it will be easy. Actually, it will be a challenge, but it's not impossible. You can actually do that actually. So if you think that you want to do a mechanical engineering side to the electrical engineering, you want to learn that, you can do that. And especially if you are interested in the power area, it is not that difficult to understand the power side. It is not that complex actually. So if you think that if you want to do a master's in power electronics, or you want to do a master's in that curriculum, I think you should be able to do it actually. It should not be that difficult. There will be some challenges. You may have to take some core courses, maybe 1, 2, or 3 core courses. And then you can actually transition to electrical engineering if you want to. I'm not saying that you have to, but if you want to, you can transition to that area, because that's my area. I know that it's not that difficult to learn that area actually. So because some of the basics you probably already know, and some of the basics you may not know, you may have to take 1 or 2 core courses actually. So and then after that, you can easily transition to electrical engineering if you want to, or you can stay in the mechanical engineering side as well. Actually, I already listed a lot of mechanical engineering jobs which are high in demand. Some of the jobs actually you have to learn coming to the industry. You have to grow in that area and have to grow the expertise in that area. But once you learn it, I think you'll have a pretty high demand. For example, I already gave you that example: mechanical design engineer of an electric machine, or a motor manufacturing engineer. These are the courses are not taught in the school, right? Schools, you teach basic mechanical engineering. You have the background. Then if you can learn in that area, work for 1 or 2 years, you actually can learn a lot actually in that area. And then your career will expand actually a big way, because I can tell you that we struggle to find people who is knowledgeable about electric machine, knowledgeable about electric machine manufacturing. So if you can staying with the industry, if you want to grow in that area, that's definitely another area you can grow. On the testing and validation side, we need a lot of engineers to validate an electric machine. We do back-to-back validation actually. So those are another area that doesn't take that. It's not that difficult to learn actually. We have a lot of validation engineer has no background in electric machine. They just came and started working on it. They learned themselves. They adapted themselves, and they are very good validation engineer actually right now. So some of the learning you can do actually in the industry, because the basics are taught in the school. So the basics and the physics, those are actually taught in the school, and then you have to learn, you have to adapt actually. So and there are a lot of self-learning you have to do. There are a lot of materials even available nowadays if you search there are a lot of schools. They actually post a lot of material. You can even study those actually and learn about those, and you can find always some mentor within the industry who can actually guide you actually and then teach you actually. So it's up to you what you want to do. If you want to go for a master's, I would say yeah, it's a good idea. An advanced degree always help down the road in your career. So if you can stay with a bachelor degree and your whole life is still fine. But if you want to go for an advanced degree, it's always good actually. So because it always helps you in the industry. So going for an advanced degree.
So let me contribute a little bit. So in mechanical engineering degree curriculum is now transforming. We are trying to make it electromechanical. Like in our mechanical engineering program, there are elective courses called embedded system, electrical machine, power transmission, robotics. So mechanical engineering program, especially in Michigan, is really no longer mechanical. So even if you get a master's in mechanical, if you take those classes, like saying electrical machine, power transmission, embedded system, and robotics, and other courses, like there are a lot of electrical courses right now offered as elective in mechanical. So I think for you, I think Ayman, what you can do is If you do a master's, you can emphasize on electromechanical. I think electromechanical, in my opinion, I don't know, Khwaja will differ with me or not. I think electromechanical degree is probably more versatile because you know more mechanical and electrical. You can have it.
I agree. Actually, we need people in the electromechanical people because system side actually they need to know electrical side as well as the mechanical side.
Right.
So this is quite important.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. That's basically that's what my undergrad degree was. It was very heavy on electromechanical, mechatronics kind of things.
Then then for you it will not be at all difficult to move from mechanical to electrical and vice versa. I don't think it will be that difficult.
Right now I'm just doing electrical testing most of the time. So I'm like should have been an electrical engineer, but that's
the testing is fine. Testing is fine, but I would not say that you do that for your whole life, right? You want to grow out of it and then move to a bigger role actually, and you can do that. So you have that background. Yeah.
I think Abu has a question.
Assalamu alaikum. Khwaja bhai, actually the question is from Lisa, so I'll just hand it to her.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Khwaja bhai. Everyone, this is Lisa Begum. I am a system architect in vehicle motion embedded controllers in GM. And Khwaja bhai, I really like your presentation, and I have a quick question related to how you explained that people who doesn't have the background, if they have growth capability, you actually look forward to hire them rather than having someone who is more experienced in the area. So I was thinking if someone who is freshly graduate from college or who has some experience and they want to apply for those positions where they don't have the background, how they can make their resume or cover letter little unique so it shows that they have that growth capability. What would be the best advice for them?
Oh, it's a good, difficult question. So I mean, on the resume, we look into the resume. And then it is important. Then we decide whom to bring for your for an interview. So in the resume, you list out all your skills actually. So what are the skills you have? What are the software you have done? What are the courses you have taken? You list those out actually in the resume. So I don't know whether you can do anything more in the resume, but it's actually whether that person has a growth potential actually comes up during the interview. In the interview process, not always that I can say that I can always judge a candidate in a 1 hour interview. It's not possible actually. So, but we try to understand pretty well actually, is that candidate capable of actually adapt to a new role or grow beyond his or her own role actually. So that usually we try to judge during the interview process. And I typically, when I bring someone for an interview, I typically try to search that candidate actually in the Google space actually to see beyond his or her resume actually which school he went to, and does that candidate have any other things that he have done that shows up in the internet actually. I typically do that actually and look for that actually. And then in the interview process, I try to judge that candidate with questions to see is that candidate smart enough or is that candidate motivated enough to take a different role or to grow beyond his or her own role actually. So that's becomes quite important for me during the interview process. I would admit that not always I can judge that, but I definitely try to judge that, and based on that I try to hire someone. Actually, I'm pretty selective about hiring whom I'm hired in my group. I have a very small group, but that growth potential is actually quite important for me. Actually, that I always look for. Actually, that's the reason I sometimes I don't hire someone who has almost 100% relevant experience that the position that I'm looking for. I have done it multiple times. I did not hire that candidate. Rather than I hired a candidate whom I see that candidate actually really can grow and has the potential to go to a different level, even though that candidate may not have the relevant experience actually. So I'm not sure I answered your question. It's not a difficult, it's not an easy task to judge a candidate like that. I'm not sure what else you can do in your resume rather than listing your skills. But typically, this is judged during the interview process to understand that candidate, what is the aspiration of that candidate, and can that candidate actually adapt and take new role and new position actually in my group. So I always try to find someone whom I always say them, even in my group, that I don't want to see you in this role all the time. I want to see that you can actually cross the boundary and go to a different role, because I have a different role in my group. I want to see someone that you always be in this role. I always tell them that I don't expect you to stay in the role that you have right now and be an expert. You can do that, but at some time I would like to see you that you can cross the boundary and assuming a different role, because that's also very important to me. So that's what I do. I'm not sure I answered your question that well.
Khwaja bhai, you did answer, and it actually helps. The two information I learned, or I would highlight from your talk here, even someone doesn't have matching, even you don't have 80% matching, 70% matching, if you like some job, they should apply for it, go for it. And number two, the thing that you mentioned, have presence in Google Space or LinkedIn somewhere where employees, if they're searching, they find some things about it.
We do search, especially
that's
if it's
good tips too.
If it is a specialized position, we always look, we always search, and we always try to get as much information about that candidate as much possible before the interview. So
yeah, that's very helpful. And also, I can also say that I come from computer science background, and now I am system architect for infrastructure in embedded controller. So doesn't matter where your educational background is, through job experience, we can change, we can evolve. My job mostly has the software part of it, but now I also have to look into the systems and decide what's going in the infrastructure or in the global basic software. So this topic is relevant to all the mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and also computer science or computer engineer. Thank you so much.
It is very important, actually. I would definitely suggest everyone then don't stay in a single role. Always try to adapt and move to a different role, because that's how you can grow, actually. So if you stay in a single role, you can do that all your life. But my suggestion would be try to move to a different role, and I have done that in my career as well, actually. So this is important.
Thank you, Khwaja bhai. That's an awesome presentation.
Yeah, thanks.
Now we will move on to our next presenter, Mr. Monjur Chowdhury. Mr. Chowdhury works as a senior GIS consultant. He assists utility companies to build, consolidate, manage highly integrated geographic information system. He is an IT service management professional and is certified ITIL4 managing professional. Mr. Chowdhury played continual service improvement manager role for IT team entrusted to monitor, gather, and analyze information about systems and processes to continuously improve service. He is a certified competent Toastmaster and competent leader of Toastmasters International. With that, I would ask Mr. Chowdhury to begin his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank Afroza and AABEA Michigan chapter for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to present and at the same time to learn. I have already learned quite a lot from the talk of Dr. Quamrul and Dr. Khwaja. I'm not very conversant with the electromechanical things of the EV. That is a fascinating area, looks like. So my topic is soft skills. And in the meantime, both Dr. Quamrul and Dr. Khwaja has touched those areas and mentioned how important they are. I would like to share some more details about those soft skills. And in doing so, I'll share my own experience, our own journey in that realm. So I'd like to commit that next 15, 20 minutes I may be talking, and then I want to make it as interesting as possible to the extent I can. So once again, good morning, everyone. And as you know, let me share my slides. I have few slides, not many. Let's see whether I can find those. Desktop share. Great. I found that. Now the challenge is to start that. Okay, I'll leave it this way. Why I am not getting the play button. Okay, that's not important. I can move in the other way. So as you can see, my slogan is soft skills for everyone and everywhere. When I say that, I learned over the years that these skills are useful for your professional life, definitely, for everyone's professional life, but at the same time, to have a good human being in your other areas of your life, like your family, your community, and wherever you are interacting with people, these skills are very much in use and helps us to maintain good relationship, to be productive, and to be good human being at the end of the day. And I think that's the goal most of us have in front of us, to be a good human being, to be productive human being, and do something good for myself, my family, humanity, and whatever other dimension we can think of. So the next thing I'll talk to you about any system. We deal with a few different things. To run a system, we need to know, or we need to have the knowledge about some tools and techniques. Those we call those hard skills. Definitely, like in the EV industry, you'll have to understand the battery, the electrical components, the circuitry, and all those things which comes into that area. So you'll have to know those technical things. That's definitely is a prerequisite to be successful in your profession. Then you deal with, you have some process to follow. As you join a job, whatever job it is, you'll have some defined process to follow. You design something, you implement that, you test that, and you take it to the customer. Sometimes it comes back, and then you re-engineer, and all those things. Those are we call process. And the third and most important thing in running a system is people. So, and these people are the most interesting part of the three things, apart from tools and process. Tools and process sort of steady and fixed, although there are a lot of development in those, but those are not whimsical, or they don't have emotions like people has. So working with people is the most challenging task out of the three. And in that area, we need these soft skills. So in our day-to-day life, we need both this set of skills. We need to know our technical know-how should be good enough for the job we are going for. At the same time, we need to have soft skills. Now, it would be relevant to say that we are in a different paradigm now compared to 50 years back, when the industry was all about assembly lines, and people used to do the same monotonous job, those workers in the assembly line, and they never had to really interact much with the co-workers or people around. They are given some instruction, and they'll follow that mechanically all the time, and produce something. But now, in the IT-centric world, it's completely different. We are no more in a top-down hierarchical system where my manager tells me something and I blindly follow that. That doesn't happen anymore. So we are in a what you call knowledge economy, where every one of us need to be a leader, a communicator, a motivator. We need to come up with ideas. We need to lead from our own area, although maybe in title we are not managers, we are individual contributors. So that's very important, that our economy has changed. It's no more the same old type of economy. Now, I think it will be relevant to share my life story at this point, why I got interested in these soft skills. So I grew up in East Rampura, the suburb of Dhaka. And when I grew up in that area, that was like a remote village. No electricity, no running water, even the roads are not there. I saw roads being built. And so it was, a backward area. And for whatever reason, I dreamed of becoming an engineer. And eventually I became an engineer. And then I joined as an electrical engineer in the biggest company in the country, Bangladesh Power Development Board. I worked there for almost 11 years. In between, board has sent me to Norway for doing some higher study in the electric distribution systems. I went back. I established a software company with my friends. We ran that for three years, and nothing was going as we planned or as we dreamed of. And then I decided to leave the country, and I ended up with a job in Middle East in the city of Dubai to work for Dubai Electricity Company. So there are lots of ups and downs in my life. And then at the end of the day, back in 98 on an autumn day, I ended up in USA with a job. So I came here to work for as a GIS analyst for a big company. And the sooner I came here, within a short time, I realized that alongside, when I compare my skills with my colleagues, my technical skills is at par. But what I was lagging is those areas, like how to present something, how to communicate clearly, how to organize something. And then I say, okay, this I need to learn, to be successful. So I started looking around, and serendipitously I saw a notice on the notice board, a flyer telling that if you are afraid to speak in front of a group of people, join our club. And the club is called Toastmasters Club. So I say, okay, that sounds interesting. I joined the Toastmasters Club. I was with the club for 4 years. I became eventually the president of the club, and I got certified. And Toastmasters, many of you may know, that is an organization which promotes learning of leadership skill and communication skill. And the learning process is actually by doing it hands-on. It's not theoretical. It's like you present things, you prepare your speech, you present in a club meeting, you get some feedback, and you improve, and then you go to the next stage. Similarly, for leadership, learning leadership role, you be the club office bearer, vice president of education, or vice president of communication to promote the club within the community or within the organization, and then president, vice president, all those roles. So this being part of that particular club or the organization, I gained a whole lot of understanding about those skills and really could practice my skills. And then onward, I kept on focusing that how do I continuously make it better? Because I realized that it's a huge area and it's a continuous journey. It's not that I learned something, is done and dusted. No, I need to continuously learn things. So after that, I joined another big company, and I volunteered to be their what they call diversity and inclusion coordinator, to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in the company. So now coming back to the soft skills, we already heard about Dr. Quamrul talking about the communication skill. Khwaja bhai also mentioned that. And in the communication skill, you also heard that listening is the most important skill. Listening is most important skill. We need to listen and listen in a so many different way. It's not only just to hear that with our ears, but to observe the body language of the person who you are talking with. That is also part of the listening. So it's a complete listening. You'll have to listen the whole thing, what he's trying to communicate, he or she is trying to communicate. And then in written communication, as well as in verbal communication, one other thing we often hear is that to try to understand or read between the lines, like what he's telling is definitely important, but what he's not telling or what is in between the things he's trying to imply in so many other words, to understand those are also skills to gather and learn. And you learn those by continuously focusing on those areas. The other thing is emotional awareness or emotional intelligence. It's a very, very important area. And many of you may have heard about this. We all know about our IQ, which is our emotion knowledge measuring tools. We say his IQ is 180 or whatever. And alongside that, there is something came up in the recent past. It's called EQ, emotional quotient, which measures your emotional knowledge or the knowledge to understand your own emotion and the emotion of others and manage your emotions to guide you in the right way to interact with the other person, to collaborate with the other person. And in this area, I need to elaborate a little bit more that emotional intelligence, when people looked into this deeper, they found, or they tried to simplify things. I'll try to simplify that way, that our brain we can visualize that our brain has two different areas. One area is what we call automated brain or automatic brain, and other is our rational brain. Our automated brain is sitting on top of our spinal cord, and it's the first thing which can control ourselves. And the main role of the automated brain is to run our automated organs, like our heart, our lungs. Those we don't control. We don't decide ourselves, like what will be the heartbeat or what will be the blood pressure. So our automated brain controls those things. And then our rational brain, which is sitting around the automated brain, we use that brain to analyze information and then to act upon those. So and then we evolved from the caveman. We used to be in the jungle, in the caves, and it was a hostile area. There are lots of animals and natural calamities and all the threats are around. So our forefathers, or the previous guys, they're very much tuned to look for threats. Which way is an animal coming? That was their for their survival. That was very, very important. If you are not aware of the threats, you'll be eaten by a lion and you're gone. So those behaviors of the brain, or those automated brain, to look for threats are still in action in our brain. So now that threats are different, no more we are encountering an animal anymore, or as often we used to, but we have different set of threats. We have discovered that threat of somebody undermining us, somebody emotionally attacking us. So we are looking for those threats nowadays. And as soon as some of those things comes in front of us, our emotional brain takes control without our awareness. Like it's automatically make us to act and do certain things, what we call fight or flight response. So there comes the EQ, that not to allow the automated brain to hijack or control me, and say something or do something which is not right. Many a times we have seen that at the heat of the moment, I said something, and then after I come down, I regret. I say, oh, why did I say that? So, but once you have said something, and if it is negative, I have definitely destroyed a breeze with my colleague or with my wife or with my daughter or whoever I'm interacting with. So to be aware that our automated brain is in action, and then to take control of that and to manage those emotions is very important. And who can do that? We tell them they are emotionally intelligent people. And in your professional life, in this day and age, that is very, very important, because we don't do things alone anymore. We cannot do things alone anymore. We'll have to cooperate. We'll have to, like, I'm an IT guy, I need to talk to my database administrator, I need to talk to my testing team, I need to talk to my coding team, I need to talk to my managers, and there is a whole lot of communication all the time. And in this, definitely this soft skills, especially the emotional intelligence, is very much in need. The next one I'll talk about is microaggression. Microaggression, it's a topic I learned not many not in the very recently. I learned about it, and then I could relate that microaggression is nothing but, in Bangladesh we call Khwaja mara kotha. We pinch somebody, we make a joke of someone, or like a common example is my Hindu friends will sometimes joke with them, telling some negative things about their religion, just to make fun of it, But it has a long implication, long impact. That person whom I am telling this will remember that, and his emotional brain, or his brain will register that, and that will definitely have an impact in our relationship. So those type of words, or which sometimes we think that these are like not that I never meant anything. It's like, okay, I just wanted to have some light words or terms, but these have long-term impact. So those things we need to avoid. And in Bangladesh, it's very much what to say, like every now and then we'll see people are doing that. It's like part of our culture, sort of. So we need to be aware of that, and in our professional life as well as in our personal life, as much as we can, to avoid those microaggressions or those light talks. Not that I'm telling you to be rigid and not to make fun or not to have fun. Have fun, but be aware of the fun you are making. Is it impacting anybody in a negative way? And then I'll talk about another or a couple of areas. One is to be able to understand diversity in our workplace, especially in America. And even if you're not in America, even if you're in Bangladesh, where we are all Bangladeshi, every individual is different. They have a different set of experience, different background, coming from different religion, different social status or social tier, like some rich, some not so rich, some rickshaw or some businessman. So to recognize that everybody is important, everybody brings certain things to the table. So when you are interacting in your group, don't undermine people or don't negate people based on who they are, or what is your understanding who they are. Rather, embrace everybody, pay attention to everybody's input. And when you can do that, when you can promote this diversity and include everybody in your discussion and communication, you'll be able to produce the best of the goods. And if you are in a service industry, you'll be able to provide the best of this service. And one research findings was that in a boardroom where they have uniformly white Caucasian board members versus another board which has one individual who is different, let's say an African American or a woman, they found that compared to the homogeneous board, the other board always comes up with better ideas, even if the individual who is different is not directly contributing anything. So that's a very eye-opening observation, that their mere presence of a different individual in a group can make the group better. So keep that in your mind when you are interacting with people of other color, other race, other gender, or veterans or whoever, because everybody brings something which may be very important for you. And then I think Dr. Quamrul mentioned about bias, and that bias area we call hidden bias. Hidden bias are biases which we grew up with. We grew up with, like a very good example is, we know that women are soft and kind, you know, they're very kind, they're soft. So that's in our mind all the time. So with that idea in our mind, when I'm in a position to select between a woman and a man for a leadership position, I may be guided by my bias to ignore the woman, although the woman has the best of the experience and background and everything, and pick up the man. And that will be a bad judgment. Similarly, we may have an idea that Indians are good in math. If that is our bias, then in picking up between an Indian and an African American, even if the African American is better, we may tilt or go for the Indian, knowing that they are good in math, which may not be true for that particular individual. So this type of things we need to be very careful about, and we need to pay attention and learn about those and act on those. If we can do that, then alongside our hard skills, we can combine the soft skill together and be successful in our professional life as well as in our personal life. Now, I'll share a couple of books with you guys, which may be useful, which was useful for me, definitely. The first one is called Power Questions. Power Questions, that talks about, like in a communication, face-to-face communication with anyone, you know how to ask good questions to allow the other individual to share his story, to tell you something interesting from which you can learn, you know, and that's the way to build a relationship. And one good example can be, if you're a consultant, you may have a tendency to go in front of your customer and just start talking like, okay, I can do this and that for you, you know, without trying to understand what the customer needs, first of all. So you start with questions first, you understand the need, then you give your service or offer things for that individual which can solve his problems or assist him to grow. So asking good questions is a very good skill. And if you read this book, there are some few hundred questions based on different scenarios, and those are very useful. And the book in the middle, which is What Got You Here Won't Get You There, that's a book written by one very funny gentleman, Marshall Goldsmith. I had the opportunity to attend his seminar. He was very funny like any other stand-up comedian, you know. And what he's telling us, he's telling that whatever skill set has brought me to my current position, that skill set I need to change or improve to go to the next level. And I need to look for the bad habits I have. And he summarizes some 20 habits, which are bad habits, and then tells us to avoid those. And all those bad habits covers lots of soft skill we already talked about, you know. And then the third book is EQ Difference. That's talk about emotional intelligence at length, explains using so many examples, and is a very nice book to read. The other thing which helped me is Harvard Business Review. They have a portal, hvr.org. I often visit their portal and try to understand what's the current topic, what's the current discussion. And there are lots of interesting topics you can get free. And if you want to be their paid member, they will send you a magazine. Those are helpful too. And access to premium articles which are not available for under the free option. And I already talked about Toastmasters, Toastmasters International. And if you search, you'll find Toastmasters Club in your area. So if you have time and energy, I would recommend that if you want to learn the communication skill, presentation skill, then join the club and be an active member of the club. Next, I want to bring to your attention to something about how do I retain these things, like how do I act upon these soft skills. It's not that I talked and you learned and you are ready to go. No, you'll have to make it a habit to act upon those skills which you have learned from whatever source you have learned. So you'll have to do that often, to consciously and every day, to make it a habit, and then only you'll be able to get the benefit out of it. We call it that, make it part of you. Make it part of you so that you don't need to think anymore. You always know that this is the right thing to do. And then the relevant thing is internalize. So as I mentioned, that make it part of you. Make and keep it continuously drive you to be a better individual, better dad, better mom, better colleague, better whatever. So again, my slogan is soft skills for everyone, everywhere. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Chowdhury Bhai. This is very good. Again, very, very relevant. And after all these technical skills we have, we do need to develop the skills to perform well at our workplace. Now, we are running a little behind. So I would like to start the lawyer presentation now. I see Michael Piston is with us. So with that, I would ask Michael to have a little introduction and start the talk.
Well, I was asked to contact you yesterday, so I really don't have anything prepared.
Oh, okay.
But I'm an immigration attorney. I've been practicing immigration law full-time for 35 years. I was primarily representing the professionals from South Asia and their employers. I do a wide variety of things. As a matter of fact, most of my personal time right now is spent suing the USCIS, seeking to overcome denials. But I have actually 4 law firms, 1 in New York, 2 in Michigan, 1 in Los Angeles, and we handle a wide range of cases, but representing South Asian professionals has always been the core of our practice. I started out representing foreign students who got their degree typically way back then in being mechanical engineering, and that was before everything turned out to be software. But I got my start representing engineers from South Asia, so I'm fairly well acquainted with the types of problems that people in this field have.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And you did represent me. I got my green card through your office.
Oh, really?
I know there are many others like me in this team, in this group. What you can help us, in the last event, you let us know, how to maintain that status in US after you graduate, and some
Which
of the
status are you
actions.
talking about? Are you talking about your F1 status, your H1 status?
most of us would, have that F1 status and then go into like optional practical training, and then go into H1 and green card eventually.
Yeah.
So if you can highlight some of those areas on what people can do. I remember last time you were saying we don't necessarily have to wait for H1 to complete to apply for a green card.
Right.
So
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand your organization is primarily people from Bangladesh. Is that correct?
that is correct. Yes.
Well, congratulations for your parents to having a good sense of being having you born in Bangladesh rather than India. That was a fine decision that they made. I always say consult an immigration attorney before you have a child. So because people from Bangladesh are not subject to this horrible visa cutoff date problem that the people from India have, basically, if you graduate with a STEM degree in the United States, you really don't need H1 if you have a cooperative employer, because you're going to get 3 years total practical training. And during that time, your employer could just apply for labor certification for you, and you can get your application for adjustment status filed and probably even approved before that 3 years runs out. So that's real. So although you should file for H1 for many reasons, as you know, the big problem facing people with H1 is this, ridiculous quota. So obviously your employer should apply for you, and hopefully will get you registered, and you will follow, get an H1. But if you don't, so what? The most important thing is that your employer you should be doing such a good job for your employer, and he should be so persuaded of the value of you to his organization that he would be willing to start a labor certification for you as soon as possible. That is the key. Get a job, get a labor certification. What's that?
That sounds very good. So, I mean, for me, it's much easier now that I'm a citizen, but we have many people in the audience, in the transition stages of F1s, H1s, green cards, right? So I would like to open it up to have any questions for Michael here.
I have a question for Michael. I can start, and please.
From our students, and recent graduates, if you guys have any questions related to your, visa status, next steps to take in the immigration journey, please go ahead and ask some questions.
Though I have a citizenship, but I do have a question to Michael. Mike, you go by Michael or Mike?
Michael.
Okay. So Michael, looks like we don't need to go through H1, right? We can directly apply for green card or labor certification, but does we need a PhD degree for that, or a master's can do that? Because when I applied for green card many years ago, I had the conception only the PhD can do that.
I've done labor certifications for jobs that required no qualifications at all, other than the person should breathe. And even that, the employer was willing to waive.
Okay, that's a good information to know.
Yeah, this is something we can share with all of our audience.
I would assume that you have a bachelor's degree, and that's more than sufficient qualifications. See, right now, the labor certificate, I don't know. I assume it's mostly because we genuinely have a real shortage of people in the professional fields. But I think to a certain extent also it's because the labor certification process is a very, very core way of testing the marketplace. I mean, seriously, who reads Sunday newspaper? What professionals read Sunday newspapers to try to get it? It's ridiculous. So as a consequence, you may or may not be surprised to know that well over 80% of the labor certification ads which we run for professionals don't get a single U.S. citizen or permanent resident applying for the position, not one. So it used to, I know that back in the day, we used to go to elaborate lengths to work with the employer to say, well, let's include all the possible requirements we can. Nowadays, it's just not that important. We do it, we go through the motions. We certainly want to make sure that if the job requires a special form of software or a knowledge of a certain technique, finite element analysis used to be all the rage. I don't know if it is anymore or not, that it's included in the requirements, but it's not that critical. It's not that critical. My experience is if you do a labor certification for a professional, it's going to get approved literally 99% of the time. And the 1% it doesn't is because of some purely mechanical error that really has nothing to do with the qualifications for the position. So, and it was much more than 90% actually, maybe 99.9. So nobody should feel like they can't file for labor certification because they don't have the sufficient qualifications. Most important thing is your employer's cooperation. That's what you need.
So for employer qualification standby, I have a fortune to talk to a lot of young graduates who wants to go through that route. And I have been heard that we need a ridiculous amount of salary as a checkpoint to apply for green card nowadays. Is it a myth or is it something relevant?
Yes. We have to do what is called a prevailing wage, make a request for a prevailing wage determination. Takes about 6 months. And when we will specify the job, describe the job, state what the requirements are, and then the Department of Labor will come back and say, okay, this is the prevailing wage for this position. And yes, the employer must offer the person at least the prevailing wage effective when he becomes a permanent resident. So he doesn't have to be paying that person that amount of money at the time the labor certification is filed, but he must be willing to pay him that amount when he becomes a permanent resident. Now, if the person is currently making less than the prevailing wage, then the employer would have to show that he has sufficient financial resources where he could have paid the guy the prevailing wage from the time the labor certification was filed onward, even if he actually wasn't. So let's say the prevailing wage is $100,000 and the guy is being paid $75,000. Well, then the employer would have to show that for the year that the labor certification was filed until the time the guy's I-140 is approved, actually until the time the guy becomes a permanent resident, that the company was making $25,000 a year so that they could make up that $25,000 deficiency. Or they could show that they had current net assets, that is to say assets over liabilities of at least $25,000. So in most cases, wage is not a problem as long as the employer is willing to pay the prevailing wage effective when the person becomes a permanent resident. Now, sometimes, sometimes you run into complications where the company has sponsored lots and lots of people, and the CIS will come back and say, well, show us how you could not just pay the difference to this particular guy, but everybody else just sponsored. That turns into a big accounting nightmare. But anyway, in most cases, this is not a major issue.
I have a specific questions regarding a special category for green card application, which is EB1 category B, which is a employee-sponsored green card processing, which is probably it takes a short time to get the green card. My question is, what qualification you would think that the candidate would need to qualify for that particular category? So,
well, you're referring now to EB1B, which is outstanding professor or researcher. And for that, you need whatever qualifications are necessary to be an outstanding professor or research. but you definitely would have to have at least a master's degree. Well, no, not necessarily. No, not for EB1. That's correct. So you'd have to have whatever qualifications are necessary to be an outstanding researcher or to be a outstanding professor. And if it was a professor, you'd have to show that the person has a, well, if for either position, you have to show that the company is, well, for a professor, for example, or a teacher, technically, post-secondary, in a post-secondary organization, you have to show that they're offering him a job which is permanent, which is to say indefinite in nature. That is to say, is a job that doesn't have a fixed cutoff date, which will keep going on and on until circumstances change. For an outstanding researcher, you have to show that the company is employing at least 3 people in research positions, and that the company has accomplishments as an research accomplishments as an organization. For example, that a paper was published saying, you know, not just it's from these 3 guys, but it's from these 3 guys as employees of BASF or whatever company you're talking about. So that's for EB1B, which is what you referred to. Those are the basic requirements for that particular position.
Okay, thanks.
But,
I think Ayman, Ayman raised a hand too. You want to add something, Ayman?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Michael. So my first question is that why would you prefer to go through the H-1B process? Because as you know, the procedure is becoming, like, every year it gets worse and worse, and they fill up the quota like almost instantly in the first cycle nowadays, and the percentage chance of getting it is like 20 to 30, something like 25. So why would you prefer going through that when you can just apply for?
I would not prefer it in the sense that I would not do this over doing a labor certification. I definitely would recommend that the person do a labor certification in all circumstances. But you know something? Not everything always goes the way we plan. People lose their jobs. All kinds of things happen. I always prefer to err on the side of caution. Try to pursue every possible remedy. If you're on an OPT, you've got 3 years to get a green card in. Normally, for a person who was not born in India or China, that's enough time. But not every situation is normal. Sometimes it's going to take more time for one reason or another. So meanwhile, go ahead and apply for the lottery 3 times. Yeah, it's a 25% chance, but you might have 3 bites of that apple. So 3 times 25 is 75 last time I checked. So actually, if you're doing it 3 times, the odds are not that bad. So go ahead and do it. Pursue both courses simultaneously. Pursue every possible course simultaneously. That is the key to maximizing your chances. The more lottery tickets you win, the better your chances of winning the lottery. The more lottery tickets you buy, the better chances you are of winning the lottery.
Yeah, that answers my question. And secondly, what's the category number for the labor certification? Is it EB3?
Well, labor certification can be filed in one of 3 categories: EB2, EB3, or EB3W. EB2 is for people whose job requires a bachelor's degree and 5 years experience or a master's. EB3 is for a person whose job requires at least 2 years of experience and or education or training. EB3W is for anybody who breathes. And even that, though, they're flexible.
Okay. And I guess my last question would be, a lot of employers, it's hard for us to bring it up to employers sometimes while we're on OPT, because you're worried that the employer is just going to say no because of the legal costs and whatever, like the legal costs, USCIS costs. And what would be the best way to talk to an employer in that case?
Most direct.
Most directly.
Well, the best, I'll tell you what, that's kind of a facetious answer. So that's actually a good question. So let me give it a little bit better answer. What you've got to do is you've got to make yourself invaluable to your immediate supervisor, because your immediate supervisor is the guy you're working for. It's the person who most knows what you can do. He's the person you want to feel like he needs you. Okay? And so you make yourself invaluable to that person. And after a certain period of time, when he realizes just how valuable you are to the organization, because you're the guy who will always work overtime, you're the guy who will always go the extra mile, you're the guy whose answer to his every question is yes, not no. Once he realizes how valuable you are, then you go up to him and you say, look, I got this problem. I want to keep working for you, but I'm on a timeline here. I need your help. I need you to go to the big boss or HR or whoever makes the decision, and I need you to advocate for me. I need you to tell the employer, you need this guy. Let's start the process.
Thanks a lot, Michael. That answers all my questions.
I see a lot of people have been sitting in chats here.
Yes, you have some question in the chat.
Shall I just start reading from the chats, or are these people going to jump in?
But still, let's read from the chat. You know, there are like 2 questions, right, in the chat. So.
Okay, well, I see here. I have a question, Michael, just to clear confusion. Is it enough to have a labor certification while an OPT, SEM-OPT? I mean, how about the other steps to green cards? Can we still complete? Well, yeah, I've been using labor certification in a kind of abbreviated way, okay? Because it is the most critical aspect of the process of applying for permanent residency, but it's actually the first of 3 steps, okay? So first you get a labor certification, then the second step would be that you would file what's called, your employer would file what's called a Form I-140, or Petition for Immigrant Worker. And if the situation is such as it is now and has been for a long time, for people from not born in India and not born in China, that there's a visa immediately available to them as indicated on the visa bulletin, then you can concurrently with that petition for immigrant worker, concurrently file an application for adjustment of status for yourself, your spouse, and any unmarried children under 21. And the I-140 and the I-485 will be adjudicated together. Usually the I-485 takes longer than the I-140. So in effect, even though it's technically a 3-step process, in practice, it's a 2-step process. And the keys to practice step is the labor certification. Once you've got that, everything should be downhill. And this question is, can we complete those steps after the expiration of OPT, STEM, OPT? Yes and no, okay? To file your application for adjustment of status, the final application, the one you would normally file concurrently with the I-140, you must not have been out of status for more than 180 days when that application is filed. So certainly, if your OPT expires, you've got to do something, and you have not been able to file an application for adjustment of status yet, you've got to do something to keep yourself in status. And that could be just as simple as going back to school and becoming a full-time student, and hopefully getting curricular practical training so you can continue to work while you're a full-time student. And then when your labor certification is approved, if there's still a visa available, you file your I-140 and your I-485 together, and within a certain period of time, you will get employment authorization based upon that I-485, get travel permission, and you just coast till you get your green card, assuming you keep your job. So that was question number 1. Let's see what else we got here.
I think if I'm studying in a non-STEM course in person and take a STEM course online at the same time, may I get the advantage of STEM?
You cannot qualify for STEM OPT unless you actually get a degree in a STEM major. So,
All right.
Art school, no, not going to make it. Home school, no, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents are spending, you and your parents are spending good money for this degree, paying for the state foreign tuition. Get something that's useful. Come on.
Okay.
And then we see, I see another one up here. something about. So, oh, then that's next, another question. Somebody else.
Right.
I have a question.
Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if someone has a good research background, can he or she can apply green card by himself or herself by NIW? If yes, then how can he or she can do that?
They can apply. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be granted. Let's talk about NIW. There's two categories that you can. There's basically two categories you can apply for that doesn't require a sponsor. There's NIW, and then there's extraordinary ability. Let's talk about NIW first. Okay, NIW is a very, very amorphous category. The criteria is extremely vague. Basically, the criteria is threefold. One, that you propose that when you become a permanent resident, you will pursue an endeavor of national importance. Okay, so you have to tell the U.S. government what I'm going to do for the U.S. government, for the United States, that's going to be helpful to the United States. That's important. And then the second issue is, so, and as for somebody in the software field or the engineering field, this is often going to be difficult because, unless you're a professor, generally speaking, it's not easy to be self-employed in these fields. And yet the NIW category basically presumes either self-employment or employment for a firm. And then of course, you're going to be employed by a firm. Why doesn't the firm sponsor you? But anyway, so the second requirement is that you show that you are well positioned to pursue this endeavor. So you got to show that whatever it is that you say you're going to do as a permanent resident, which is important, you got to show that you're well positioned, that you got the kind of qualifications that are necessary to do it. So like right now, for example, I've got a national interest waiver pending for a woman who has extensive experience in neuroimmunology, and her proposed endeavor is doing neuroimmunology research, and she's got an MD and a PhD and a lot of other qualifications, all kinds of experience. So she's got a proposed endeavor of importance, and she is well positioned to pursue this endeavor. And then the third criteria is whether or not the CIS, in its discretion, should determine that what you're doing is so important that it outweighs the general rule that we should do a labor certification to prove that there's no qualified U.S. workers for the position. So with that very vague criteria, you make your case. You define an endeavor, you explain why you're well positioned to do it, explain why it's good for America. That's how you apply for a national interest waiver. And if it sounds vague, it is, but there it is. For the other criteria is alien of extraordinary ability. And for that, it's a little bit more objective. There's like 10 criteria. You can find them at HCFR 204.5 H, I think, or J, not quite sure. Anyway, somewhere in HCFR 204.5. And they have 10 basic criteria. You have to meet 3 of them. And then on top of that, you have to show that you are among the small percentage of people who have risen to the top of your field. Very, very difficult to do if you're not in academia, quite frankly. Is that it?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah,
I see something. I got one new message here. Let me go look at that. No, it says thanks, Michael. Well, you're welcome. Okay.
I think somebody raised their hand.
All right.
Thank you, Michael, for the answers you have provided. That was very informative. So in addition, I have 2 questions to you. My first question is, in addition to Mr. Mahmoud Salam's question, I would like to know that if somebody is gonna go through NIW process, so in that case, is it mandatory to have a PhD?
No, absolutely not. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this. It is mandatory to either have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree and 5 years experience, 5-year post degree. That's mandatory.
Yes.
PhD is helpful, but a master's or a BS +5 is mandatory.
Thank you. And my second question is, as you were talking about the work experience, so does it count the overseas or foreign work experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Okie doke.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for Michael. Michael, I see something called AILA, which I pronounced as ILA. And I tell you something about the word ILA to me, the way it comes to me. We had a cyclone and it was named ILA, you know, so in Bangladesh. So I was wondering what is your ILA is for?
Well, we actually call it IOLA. And it is the Immigration Office of Los Angeles. So that's my Los Angeles office.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I think I was scheduled to 12:10, so I think we've reached the time. So we're on schedule.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking in my mute. I mean, I wanted to thank you so much for joining and answering these questions. It's really very, very helpful. So thank you. We'll go on to the next.
So I assume you have my contact information, or shall I put it in the chat here?
You can, or we're contacting you through Mona Ahmed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's one of your local offices.
If you have any immigration questions, don't hesitate to email me or email Mona anytime, any place. We answer questions all the time. Nobody should feel like they have to, you know, if they're going to contact us, it has to be about a potential case or something like that. We help people all the time. If we can help you do it yourself, we will, but we probably won't, because we've come to learn that it's really important to have a lawyer in any kind of situation, but never feel like, you know, if you're under any that if you contact us, you're under any obligation whatsoever. I answer questions to people all over the country, all the time. Never hear from them again, and that's fine. I don't care. We're here literally to help. Perhaps there's some altruistic method, but just to be perfectly frank with you, I've never advertised in my life. This has always been my way of promoting myself, and that just is, you got questions, ask me. I don't care if you're being represented by another attorney. I don't care anything. You just go ahead and ask whatever questions you have. I will answer it as good faith. If it's the case, great. If it's not, that's fine too. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okie doke.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
I'll talk to you later then.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Next, we had two entrepreneurs, Jhankar Mahbub and Akhter Zaman. I would like to make a little change. Jhankar, hopefully you'll understand, Akhter has something else come up, so he needs to go first. So with that, I would ask Akhter, if you could just present yourself. I mean, I'll introduce you. You are a principal engineer at Advanced Engineering Services. You have over 30 years of experience in geotechnical engineering, field quality control, and quality assurance for construction projects. So with that, if you could, you know, we have some civil engineering candidates. They would get to know you. Please present yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Shuman. Thank you, everyone, for organizing this. This is, I've been hearing to the attorney just before, you know, starting the chat. I mean, it was very informative. So I appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. So this is really, really recommendable. Like Shuman said, I'm Akhter Zaman. I am a graduate of BUET in civil engineering in 1992, and then came to the US in about 1994. And, you know, ever since I've been working in different fields of geotechnical engineering. And I was fortunate enough to establish my own company in 2019. So we're kind of new kid in the block to some extent. But thankfully, with everybody's help and prayer, we've been very successful. We started in 19, like I mentioned, with just by myself, and we've grown to about 14 employees in about 3.5 years. So thanks to everyone's good wishes. Like Shumon mentioned, my specialization is primarily in the geotechnical engineering and construction quality control testing and inspection services. So it's kind of somewhat of a unique field within civil engineering. Some of you might know. We pretty much design, test the ground to make sure whatever you're building will sustain. And if not, ground is not suitable, then we provide recommendations to design so that you can support. So if you're building any kind of construction related work, typically, they would need a geotechnical study done to make sure the ground can support what you're building. You just name it: buildings, roads, highways, railroad, treatment plant, anything and everything construction related is where you need a component where to make sure that the ground can support the intended use. And then we can also basically provide some recommendations to do that. So that's the geotechnical engineering side, where we collect samples, we analyze them, we have our own lab, and basically come up with the recommendations based on the soil conditions. The other aspect, like I said, is the construction quality control testing and inspection. So as the project goes through the construction phase, the owner, structural engineer, architect, one of them is usually responsible or wants to make sure that whatever the design is, whatever the design specifications are, they are being followed, and kind of be a quality control, quality assurance type situation where we as an independent consultant are present during construction to perform various materials testing to make sure that they are following the specs and the design requirements. And if they're not, then we provide the consulting service to provide solutions so that they can meet the project requirements. Because, as you can imagine, when things comes up, especially with the ground conditions, there's always problems, because of the weather and all that good stuff. So we are usually work with the contractor, and we kind of give our recommendations and help them to solve a problem that they're into. There's also an inspection phase where we also have to inspect what the contractors is doing, and their contractors are performing various tasks, and we have to document in terms of quantities, in terms of quality, and make sure that they're following all the project specifications and drawings and whatnot. So that's kind of a summary of what we do and what kind of services we provide. I mean, obviously the work. Yeah, one of the uniqueness that I always tell everyone, that in engineering field, either you're pretty much stuck in your desk or you're in the field. We are probably somewhat of a hybrid system where we have to do some lab work, some office work, but we also have to spend quite a bit of time in the field, looking at stuff, inspecting, testing, materials testing, and whatnot. So this kind of gives us a kind of a breakaway. You're not stuck on your desk for every day in and out, but you have the opportunity to kind of go and visit sites, kind of get the hands-on experience, and kind of move on from that point. So there's a big difference from other fields, especially within civil, because either you're on the design side or you're on the construction side. You rarely get the opportunity to try both sides, and we are kind of one of those hybrid mode. So we are located in Hammond, Indiana, which is on the northwest corner of Indiana. We're pretty much we're actually just on the state line with Chicago, Illinois. So it's on the northwest corner. We're kind of basically everything in this area is, you started from TV stations and everything else. And in the time zone, we are with the Chicago time zone. So that's kind of a summary of what we do and what we offer. If anyone have any questions or anything else, and I know there are some few civils interested, and if they want to talk later or separately about their interest, I don't know if there's anyone interested in the geotechnical fields or construction testing inspection fields. I would love to, talk to them, help them out, because we're always looking for good, good partners to join our team to kind of help grow and provide quality services. So, Shuman, that's all I have. You have.
No, that's very good. Thanks for your time. I know you have to move on to another event very soon.
Yeah, weekends are sometimes busier than weekdays, right? So
yeah, just wanted to have you here and show your face, and we can connect you with some of the civil engineering candidates we have.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. Yeah. So I don't know if you're gonna just pass on our email or my contact, right?
I'll do that. I'll take care of that. But just quickly, anybody has any questions for Akhter? All right, sounds like not right now. But again, thank you, Akhter. Very helpful. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I just want to say thank you to Akhter, your friend Sadek here. So
hey, yo, Sadek.
Sadek. All right.
Okay, that's it. Okay, all right. Thank you so much again.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
We'll go on to Jhankar Mahbub right now. I'll do a little introduction for him. Jhankar Mahbub is a web developer, entrepreneur, author, YouTuber, and teacher. He is working as a senior web developer with Nielsen. He founded the Programming Hero and Codinism startup focusing on making learning fun, interactive and scalable apps. Around 100+ employees are working for both companies. He is the author of 5 programming self-help books. He is also teaching programming languages on YouTube. He has 483,000 subscribers on YouTube. With that, I would ask Jhankar to start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashik Bhai. Hopefully you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, cool. So thank you. This is definitely appreciate everybody's time this morning or noon, wherever you are right now. So summary is very simple. We started this for fun back in 2017 as in Chicago, when Akhter Bhai, I think, was in Chicago at that time too. That time we're doing a lot of fun stuff. The Codinism started. We launched a simple mobile app which crossed like 1.5 million download. That's in our app store, and that's what we started. And then we started, okay, we are teaching people, but we want to get the ultimate goal of learning. I understand there are a few folks who definitely enjoy learning and they want to like do the research and those kind of things, but most of us in general, they focus on kind of getting an employment or doing something with their career. And that's why I started the Programming Hero in Bangladesh, and where we started with this mission to teach people programming and then place them. And once we started that part, after that, we started employing, and recently we crossed 2,000 employment for intern and full-time from Bangladesh. And the one good part is that we are seeing that around 55 to 60% the placement that we are doing is going to overseas. That means like from Bangladesh, a student who is finishing their graduation, or even they're starting right now, they get an intern from European companies. A lot of them goes to Indian companies, because India is a very big market and they have a lot of opportunity, and IT is growing. And then what we started to placing some of the students who goes through our bootcamp to US companies. And one company actually reached out to us that, hey, can we have your students kind of like a little bit experienced? And that's what it started from a company at New Jersey where we placed some of our senior guys. And then it came back to the Codenism. So Codenism recently focusing with working with like a 4 organization where our 12 senior engineers are working remotely from Bangladesh. And if you go to the Codenism website, you will see the model is pretty simple for us that from Bangladesh, we have like a senior developer, and those senior developer remotely from Bangladesh working full-time as a team member of USA companies. And these companies, definitely they're liking it. We started with 1 and then they asked for 2 more. We provided 2, they asked for a few more. And then it is growing pretty much this year. Actually, we got like all this traction this year. And some of the companies are kind of like, we are having some conversation. We don't have like a locally placed candidate yet, but 1 or 2 companies are interested for those opportunities. So the whole spectrum is the economy, whatever we are seeing a lot of like kind of concerns around the year because of like last week, Facebook had a significant layoff. And what that means to us and the future people who are looking for a job. And the first reason is that some of the people will get some hit, and definitely a lot of hiring is most of the cases like a strategic and emotional decision. Once a company decided to grow, they have like a plan to grow in some sector and they want to implement a big project and those kind of things. And at that time, once the market, the stock market, as well as the employment market is little bit concerned, this is once you see the number seems interesting. But if you put in the perspective, this is pretty much nothing. Unemployment rate is like still 3.5%. So USA is a huge workforce. So if 1 or 2 or even 10 companies lays off maybe 20,000, I think it's close to 100,000 right now. It's not even like 1% of the employment that's happening. Employments people are employed in the overall USA. So I don't see like still there is any reason to get panicked about the job market. There would be opportunities, there would be competition, and there would be organization, they will need quality people to work for them. And the competition will be higher, harder, as well as like maybe the amount of remuneration you would expect it would go a little bit down. But I don't see any reason, because like I have few folks who got I know a lot of people who got laid off in 2008 or around that time. Some of them started business, and I know at least 2 of those person who is doing really good when they get laid off and they started a business. So that's one angle of it. And also I know few folks who had got hired at that time. So your skills and the presentation of your skill is the differentiating factor, and the way you portray. A lot of people are concerned, especially those who graduates here. And I was going through some of the resumes. They have like a NewsGrid. Recently, NewsGrid actually changed their name, but the resume has like the old name. So you need to, the way you need to present your skills could be a little bit better. And once I was going through the resumes, a lot of the resumes was kind of portraying the person other than the portraying the need of the organization is looking for. If you are looking for an industry positions, try to change like, okay, I taught on that class. Yes, this is interesting. Or I took this class, or maybe I was a TA on that class. Yes, that is interesting, but that should not be the top thing on your resume. Because company, most of the company, if you are applying for a professor, this is the perfect. If you're looking for some kind of like an assistant professor or some kind of postdoc, then this is perfect. But if you're looking for a job in the industry, then this is kind of a barrier to get to the gist of what you did. And a lot of resumes, when I was seeing, there was like a 10, 12, even 15 bullet points. I know you have done a lot of great work over there, but unfortunately, if there is a more than 4 or 5 bullet points, people doesn't read all these things. So this is actually wasting their time and they are losing their interest by going through your 5-page resume. Because if they got, like I say, 50 resumes, they would not gonna read every word on the resume. I see like some people put like a lot of say summary of the skills, but try to make it as like a bullet points so that you can highlight the core things that company is looking for. So it's not actually you that they are looking for. Rather, they are looking for their positions who can fit to their positions. So yes, you have done a lot of great stuff, but customize it and look at if you want to hire somebody on that position, how your resume can quickly can reflect. And one resume I saw like in a 2-column, which is 2-column resume is could be good, but if you use a lot of icons and 2 columns, personally, this is my personal preference. I don't prefer 2-page resume. Some resumes looks like a CV. Unfortunately, in the USA, I don't see a lot of CVs, though you can put the way you want to put. It's your resume, is your reflection, but try to do little bit work and then give people very quick reflection of what you could do for their role they are looking for, not about your history, not about everything you have done your entire life. Most of the cases, maybe 30 or 40% what you have done could be relevant to a position you are applying. Just focus on those. That's how they don't need to dig the information going into the page number 3 or page number 2, and then in the middle, oh, I also did this, and that's too late. And most of the cases, you definitely need to look for reference, and that's what I have seen when I was finding a lot of people, and they kind of like have a lot of myth in them. So for example, my experience in Bangladesh should not be counted. This is a solid myth. If you think it would not be counted, then it's kind of like you are throwing it through the window. But these days, if you work any kind of like industry, it's transferable and it is useful. So present it right way, present it in the approachable way, and just mention it. This is the experience of this organization. And if needed, don't even need to mention this was in Bangladesh or something. This is my experience. If they ask, then talk about it. Otherwise, this is my professional experience from this, and this is what I have done. Try to put is like a precise, and people here, it doesn't matter. I have seen like 15-20 years experienced people have just 1 single page resume. So too much information is a barrier, at least in my personal opinion. So try to avoid those. And definitely a lot of emotions are here and there, but I don't think like there is a reason to be concerned right now. And but you need to be cautious. Cautious means like you need to be strategic. And if you are a student, make sure that don't a lot of people I have seen when I was in school doing my master's, I have seen like, okay, they don't have the backup plan. Say I will apply, I will be graduate at that time, so I didn't apply for a jobs, or I don't have an offer letter, I didn't kept maybe one kind of like a course, something as a backup. If I don't get job, or if I don't get the OPT or whatever I needed, I can still be legal in that way. And there is always a backup. There was an attorney talked before, but volunteer works or those kind of positions. So think about it, that what would be your plan B, plan C. If things goes bad, your plan B or plan C is definitely a backup plan if you want to get into the job force. But ultimately, I have never seen a person like, or there is like a very few, and most of the cases I see they didn't tried enough, but there are always alternative way to go through the any situation. So economic downturn or anything, this is if that happens, this would be maybe temporary, but that doesn't mean that every organization, that doesn't mean like every occupation would be shut down or something like that. So that's pretty much I wanted to give little bit overview about the company, and I got few resumes. I don't definitely want to go through each one of them right now, but if anybody has any specific question, I would happy to talk about the organization, my journey, or anything else. And last thing is that whatever my feedback about the resumes is truly my personal feedback. Don't take it as like a professional feedback or anything like that. And if you don't agree with it, that's fine too. Resume, and there could be thousands of different ways you can represent yourself. And I'm sure like 999 of them will work. So you don't need to worry about it, but try to make it a little bit competitive. So that's all from my end. Back to Ashik Bhai.
Thank you so much, Jhankar. That was very awesome, because I mean, you mentioned the current situation and not to lose hope and have these backup plans ready. So that's really, really good and very practical points you made about the resume, which will be more useful, in the next session we have, this almost like one-on-ones. AABEA will be putting us into separate rooms with the candidates. And just to let everybody know, especially the students and the job seekers, you submitted your resume. I mean, we have half an hour into this event, half an hour more, but that's not the end of it. We will connect you to each of us so the discussions can continue. So here we'll have, short 30-minute period, between you and us, and then inshallah we'll continue, to support you. That's the goal.